Hey there. Welcome to Snowpal Podcast. Hope you're doing well. This podcast is going to be a little different, actually, quite a bit different from our typical podcast that happen to be in the space of either software engineering, AI, or finance. This one's going to be different. I think we've had one podcast that's similar to this in the past. So I'm going to do a screen share quickly to give you some context. If you go to our homepage of our company website, products.snowpal.com, and then search for maybe the word credibility, you'll find one podcast that I recorded not too long ago that speaks to why credibility needs to be built both by individuals and communities. So if you enjoyed the current podcast that you're watching or listening to, you may want to check the other one out as well. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to stop the screen share. And here's what we're going to talk about maybe in the next 25, 30 minutes. Let's see how long this takes. You know, I've seen a lot of posts on my Instagram feed lately. It's been for a few months actually, but it's just increasing, has been increasing the past several weeks. Where there's videos of people capturing activities that Indian people do in the US, and then they have comments about it. And I mean, they have a video and maybe they have a voiceover, they share their opinion. And then if you go to the comments, you can see it's pretty wild. And if you haven't seen it, I mean, you didn't genuinely miss much. It pops up in my feed all the time. Maybe because I've watched one or two of them, so it thinks I'm actually interested in it, and so it's showing me more of it, obviously. So let me give you an example. It's somebody, let's say an Indian man, say someone my age or something like that, right? It doesn't matter. Does something in the US, and it's not generally what you expect out of people for whatever reason. There's the video, it's self-descriptive, right? I'm trying to see what example to share here, but we'll see as we go. And long story short, they did something that they're generally not expected to do. I mean, not from a legality standpoint, but just from a civic sense standpoint. And people get offended, and I think rightfully so. And they share the video, and I see a lot of Indian people actually take offense to it, rather than try to see why someone shared that video, or what they're trying to convey through that. I mean, you start getting offended without without even understanding or scratching the surface of what the content is all about. And to me, that didn't make sense. As I read some of those comments, I was like, you know what? Why is somebody getting offended? I mean, is if the video were to be untrue, say it was AI generated or something along those lines, then sure, then you have all the valid points to disagree. But in most of those cases, at least in all of them that I had seen, that was not what somebody had brought to the table. They didn't disagree that it was a genuine video. They just disagreed about the tone of the video, the very fact that someone captured that as content and had posted it. Now I know I'm probably 3 minutes in. Let me jump. Brevity is not my forte, but I want to make an effort to get a little bit better at that. So the whole idea behind this recording, it's generally, I mean, if you're trying to learn engineering, this is not the video, right? You can check out the 400 other podcasts that we have. Or if you want to learn finance, you can check out the 30 other podcasts that we have. Or AI, we probably have like tons of podcasts as well. And there's more in the coming. The AI series is just getting started. But this one is only if you're an Indian person who lives in the US, maybe if you're someone who moved to the US recently from India, I hope that this video benefits you. I did that more than half my life ago. So I'm just sharing some of my learnings and observations over this period of time. This is not saying that I'm perfect. I know everybody knows I'm nowhere near that. But it's just I've learned some of those things along the way, and I did know some of them when I came here. Everything I'm going to share with you here is not things that I learned after moving or migrating to the US. There are a few things I learned after migrating, things that were different from a civic sense and what's accepted, what's not standpoint. But, as a decent citizen, even back in India, I want to believe that I did follow through a lot of those rules that guidelines I'm going to share with you here. Anyways, let me get started. And I don't know, you could have, I expect people to have opinions about this video, because this is again different from the typical ones that we create and post. Also, this is a very subjective topic, so please, feel free to disagree, because most of my learnings in life, whether engineering, professional, or otherwise, have come generally from people disagreeing with me. All I ask is just be courteous in your disagreements and be civil. I think that's fair enough, right? Anyways, I have a number of bullets. I usually don't come prepared necessarily. I come to these podcasts with my experience as something that backs me. For this one, though, I actually spent like 20 minutes jotting down some notes. I even numbered them so I didn't forget the line items. So, without further ado, even if you're 5 minutes in, let's get started. So this is not advice or whatever. Just take them as guidelines. Take it with a grain of salt. If you think it doesn't make sense, add a comment or check with somebody else to see if this makes sense or not. The first item, and some of this is going to be stating the obvious, or actually all of it is going to be stating the obvious. Let me be very clear. But unfortunately, not everything that's obvious to some of us is obvious to all of us, and that's why I felt the urge to record this. First item: do not litter. So, different parts of the world have different rules, like laws as well. Like if you're in Singapore, and I think if you littered, you're probably going to be charged like a $500 as fine, something along those lines. And it's a small country, so it's possible that they can enforce that. Every time someone throws a piece of garbage, maybe they are found out that maybe there's cameras all over the place, so they probably get something in the mail and they have to pay that fine. I believe. I mean, I've been to Singapore a few times. I don't know what exactly the process is, but I have to believe it's something along those lines. So you don't litter, not because you don't want to or you shouldn't. That's because you would have to pay hundreds of dollars if you did, right? So you refrain from even attempting to do that. Plus, they have trash bins, so there's no real need or necessity to litter. There's never a need to litter, right? To be very clear. But America is a big country, right? What is like the third largest country with 3.5 million square miles. It's impossible. It's going to be impossible to enforce this, right? I mean, we were in New York last week, and yeah, there is a lot of trash, like plenty of trash. Now, I don't know what the policies in New York are, but there's a lot of trash bins. So I don't know why people find the need to litter. I don't know whether it's locals doing it, whether it's people visiting, tourists doing it. I have no idea. But you do see a lot of trash. But that's not a representation or a reflection of the rest of the country, right? I mean, you're not going to find that much or anywhere close to that much trash in, say, Alaska, which probably has like 300,000 people. Is it something along those lines? So there is trash, but there shouldn't be. Back in India, again, I'm speaking to as somebody who moved here like decades ago. So folks who live there, please correct me where I'm wrong, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be wrong in many instances. I don't know if there's a law that actually prevents people from littering. I mean, there should be civic sense, but I don't know if it could be charged like 5,000 rupees as fine if you threw something on the street. If you could be, I don't know why there is so much trash on the streets, right? I don't know. But again, the first thing is you move here, there is trash, there are trash bins everywhere. So there is no good reason. There's no reason ever, certainly not a good reason to litter. So do not litter. That's point number one. But I forgot to mention something before I started the podcast, before we started this bullet one. So let's go back 3 minutes. The reason I actually felt the urge to record this, I should have mentioned that, is because as somebody who's Indian and who lives here in the US, I feel like, and somebody who looks like me or talks like me does something that's not accepted, generally accepted, that becomes a poor reflection of not just the person who's doing that act, but it becomes a poor reflection of the rest of on the rest of us as well, because we happen to look like that person, or we happen to speak like that person, we happen to come from the same part of the world that that person comes from. And people, whether intentionally or unintentionally advertently or inadvertently, they tend to stereotype, which is generally not a good thing. But that being said, it's human nature to stereotype, because a lot of times you might actually end up being right by stereotyping, unfortunately. So I wouldn't blame people who do that. It'd be good if they didn't do it, if nobody did it, but it's not humanly possible, I think. But the reason people do that is because they see more of those same actions from more of the people coming from a certain part of the world, whatever those actions happen to be. This podcast is only about what I've seen other Indian people do. And as an Indian, I feel like maybe it's all right for me to share that. Even if it is not, I'm doing it regardless, because I think it's in good intent, right? So what I don't want to happen is, as we live here, as we create these societies and try to assimilate into the culture, we don't want a few people, I don't want to call them bad apples, but few people or a number of people who do things that are generally not accepted in a different country, in a place that they migrated to. And it has an impact on everybody else who lives there, who looks like them, talks like them, and eats like them, and with no fault of theirs, really, right? Because it so happens people tend to put everybody in the same bucket. I don't want to be in that bucket, right? I only want to be judged for actions that I do, not for actions that somebody else who looks like me did. And as I see more of these posts that show up on Instagram, there's like hundreds of them actually, right? I don't use TikTok, so I don't know if it's there. I'm pretty sure it's there on TikTok as well. But I'm certainly on Reels. I see this all the time, recordings of things Indian people do in the US. And I'm like, oh my God, please don't do that. So that's the context behind why I felt the urge to do this recording. So the first point was do not litter. Second one is, and again, this is not in any particular order. I've not segmented this and whatnot, so it's just going to be a random list of points. The second one is do not honk even when you're in an Indian street. And what I mean by an Indian street is if you go to like Chicago, I think it's called the Devon Street or something along those lines, where it's India town, if you will. There's a lot of Indian restaurants, Indian eateries, and uh, Indian clothing and apparel stores, all kinds of stuff that you can buy that is actually very good. It's convenient that is there in many cities in the US, because when I moved here, we didn't have those things and it was very difficult to find what you were looking for as an Indian immigrant. So it's nice that it is there, undoubtedly. But when you go to those streets where there's a heavy concentration of Indian stores and people and whatnot, I feel like people think that they don't have to follow the general rules of the society that they're living in outside of those streets. It's almost like you drive into those streets and they're like, yep, I can start honking. I can park my car, put the hazard lights, and go quickly grab a bottle of, a can of milk. I don't have to find parking. It's again, I'm sure I'm going to be vilified for saying that I'm generalizing that this is how things are happening in India. But till I moved here, think this is how things were happening, at least in places that where I lived. I mean, I love India, right? I'm Indian, obviously, but that doesn't mean, I mean, I love America, but that doesn't mean you don't call it for things where you see that you don't agree with in societies that you come from. You cannot just drink the Kool-Aid. So this video is about this particular category of items. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to draw parallels and examples. So when you go to the streets, don't start honking. And I know I saw a video of not just in the US, but somewhere in London where there's an Indian community where someone had posted a few videos where the trash was overflowing and people were just littering everywhere. And then I think the video was posted by, if I'm not wrong, by somebody who was local British. And he was offended. And why wouldn't you be? I would be offended if I were living there and I'm not British. So rather than have comments that try to defend that behavior, I don't know how you can even defend such behavior, but I think you have to acknowledge that this is not right and you have to make adjustments either as individuals or as society, so people can change their stereotypical opinions about us as people. So again, don't honk, don't park where you're not supposed to, because what becomes convenient for you because you don't want to find parking and you want to go grab a can of milk, it creates inconvenience for other people. So it's not just what you need; it's actually what it means for the rest of society as well. Right? That's point number two. Point number three: do not drive when you're on the freeway. Stay on the right lanes unless you're passing somebody. Right? I mean, let's say you're going on, I don't know, Dallas Toll Road and you're doing 55. Don't stay on the leftmost lane, because I think it's basic courtesy that you use the right lanes when the right lanes are open and available. So you don't want to block people. Whether how the other person drives is not your business, but you want to make sure that you don't occupy or block the lanes when the slower lanes are actually available. That's point number three. Point number four: take care of your body odor. So use colognes and perfumes where you think it might be necessary. It's a summertime here and some of us perspire a lot more than other people. I actually read that Indian food causes, more perspiration. I don't know if it's true, but I just did read it someplace. So, your body odor is yours, but it does become offensive to other people when you're in crowded places and public spaces. So if you're going to check out the cherry blossom in DC, and there's going to be a lot of people, there are a lot of people, and you're going to be pretty close to each other. It's hot days, whatever you need to do. So your body odor doesn't become a problem to other people. You should just do that. That's four. Point number five: speak softly when in public places and in office spaces and whatnot. I saw a recording recently of an Indian lady in the tube in England, somewhere in London, where she was actually eating with her fingers. I believe she was South Indian. I come from the southern part of India as well, and I eat with my fingers at home. And if I am very comfortable, I sometimes do it outside, but most likely, more often than not, I don't. I mean, I use because not everything can be eaten with your fingers. When I eat Indian food, outside. There are occasions where if I'm going to a South Indian place where I see other people eating with their fingers, I might do it too. But 9 out of 10 times, I'm not doing that, right? Because I cannot eat anything else but South Indian food using my fingers. And even then, I'm cognizant of who I'm sitting with and who else is there. It just doesn't make me comfortable. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that I generally don't do that. But at home, obviously, we eat with our fingers. We wouldn't eat otherwise 99% of the time. But you don't do that in a subway. When I'm taking the metro or DC, I'm not eating. I don't even know if you can take food, to be honest. And even if people are taking it, uh, you don't want to eat with your fingers. And then she was eating with the fingers and speaking very loudly. And then some of the counter arguments were, hey, if you took a sandwich or a bag of chips, how are you going to eat that? You can't use a spoon to eat a chip. Eating a chip is different. A single chip is different from eating rice and I don't know mulligatawny, which is probably you've seen Seinfeld. You know what that is? It's slick. It's called rasam in our language. It's amazing food, good when you have cold or whatnot, or even otherwise when you don't have a cold or a cough. But it's not something you eat with your fingers. Not in public. It's going to be quite. It's going to be very messy. Talking loudly also, right? You have to be aware that trains are meant to be quiet. I mean, I think we have quiet cars on Amtrak here in Amtrak, but I believe in some other parts, like in Europe, the default is a quiet car. You're not expected to be talking on your phone while you're sitting in those cars or compartments. That's something you learn not by reading a book of laws or whatnot. You just observe your surroundings and see what is generally acceptable and what is not. And if it is not, just don't do it. Uh, Number six, speak in English in professional settings at all times. I'm just talking about the US. Most of these points relate to the US, and sometimes I might call it for examples from England, Europe, UK, or some other place in Europe because I just happen to see them on my feed, and these points could be subconsciously influenced by some of those items as well. So speak in English, even at work, even when your coworkers, let's say, I don't know, there's three other Indian people in your team, and they're the only ones in the team, or they're the only ones who popped into the meeting, and they happen to speak your language, which it's a coincidence. I mean, I speak Tamil, and I've never been in a meeting where I've hardly actually had people in my team who speak my language. But even if I did, I can't remember the last time that I did. Certainly, it was not just people who understood the language, but there are languages that are more common than others, Indian languages in the US. So if you're in a meeting where everybody else understands your language, maybe the people who don't haven't joined the meeting yet, I think you should still speak in English. It's just professional, right? Because you don't want somebody to pop in and then you recognize that they are there and then you change your language. It just doesn't bode well. I mean, little things, but all of them go a long distance in influencing people and the way they look at us. So it's important. If you're in the US in a public setting, that's if you're not talking to your family or your partner or your friends, in public settings. I'm saying in general, if you're speaking loud enough that other people can hear, I think you should just speak in English. It seems like it's common courtesy. Certainly at work, no question about that. Number seven, stand in line. I mean, I told you I'm going to state the obvious. Stand in line. Do not cut people. Right? I mean, in India sometimes when you order food, like you go to a place, there's no real line. I mean, why India? I was there in New York 2 days ago, and I was standing outside a South Indian restaurant. There wasn't a line. I mean, even if you go to like one of these other ice cream parlors or Pinkberry or whatnot in New York, where there is not Pinkberry anymore, but uh, places that are like Haiti, for instance, in Tyson's Corner. It's crowded, but you see there is a very simple line. You can see there's no two ways to double guess that line. There's people standing in line. Yeah, when you get your turn, you go place the order. But in Indian places, somehow you don't seem to have a line. You seem to swarm. You seem to want to swarm to the counter, and then the person who yells the loudest seems to get served first. That has been my experience back in India, at least over the years in the past. Not something you want to have here in the US. So respect the line. Don't cut somebody. Don't and if you have somebody, let's say you have a friend stand in line for you, and then you want to show up because you're delayed. It's all right if one person standing in line and one more person joins. I think it's all right. You don't want to have like one person standing in line and then there's like eight other people who are part of that cohort or that party, which means me standing behind six people now and ends up standing behind like 48 people because I wouldn't have even gone to the line in the first place if I'd known that there was a party of eight associated with each person standing in the line. You see what I mean? So just again, common courtesy. Don't cut somebody. And if you are trying to hold the place for someone else, make sure it's proportional. 1:1, maybe 1:2. but not like 1:n, where n is like 5 or 7 or some big number. um, Number 8, do not block your entire row for your friends or family in a theater. This again, I've only seen that in in theaters that play Indian cinema, right? Indian movies. You go to watch something and you go try to sit down because the seat is empty, and then someone says, "Oh, you know what? This is taken," or the next 6 seats are taken because we are waiting for friends. That's rather annoying. I have to keep hopping from one row to the other till I find one that's not only empty, but it's something that, excuse me, is not taken by somebody else, because there's one person sitting at the edge of the row and claims that they happen to claim that the rest of the row is taken for someone else. That doesn't make any sense. So just don't do that. It's very, very annoying. Number 9, do not park in fire lanes at a concert. So we were at a concert a month ago. An Indian musician had come to Virginia. There was hundreds of parking spaces. The concert is not all that crowded, so there was no dearth of parking. There's generally plenty of parking, but people decided for whatever reason that, you know what, they'll park on the fire lanes. So they had to come. They had to interrupt. In the middle of the concert, they had to stop the singer. They had to stop singing for someone to make an announcement saying, "Hey, please don't park your vehicles on the fire lane." This is incredibly embarrassing. I mean, it is a fire lane. There are parking spaces. If there's no parking spaces, just don't park. Find someplace else where you can legally park. Again, don't wait for the cops to enforce this, because they have plenty of other important things to do, I'm sure. And where we can enforce rules ourselves on us, why have someone else with authority do it? They shouldn't have to. So park your car in spaces where you're supposed to park, not where it's meant for 15-minute parking, not where it's curbside parking, not where it's a fire lane. Park your vehicles where you should park your vehicles. Simple. If you're going to Harris Theater, then just park your car and then go in. Don't block the fire lanes just because it's convenient for you to go in and grab something quickly and come. It's convenient for you. It's illegal for one, and it's inconvenient for everybody else. Just remember that. Um, what is next? Number 10 is, do not lie in interviews or do not embellish your skills. Again, you might be thinking, hey, not every one of these bullets is exclusively meant for Indian people. Absolutely. A lot of this is valid for other people as well. But the purpose behind this video is just speaking to somebody who's like me, right? Pretty much. And hopefully helping them in the process assimilate better with the society. But some of these items in the list might actually be a bit more generic. This is one of them. But again, I put them here only because I've had that experience with somebody who is actually from India who may have done this. Either I've seen it firsthand, or I've read about it, or I've watched it, or something along those lines. So I've had people interview with me who've actually quoted, they've quoted, they've said they've worked on something for like 6 years. The framework would only be like 3 years old. I would be like, how did you start working on the framework before it even came into existence, for instance? And they recognize that, oh, you know what, I'm not talking to a high level person, but actually I'm talking to a fellow developer. So maybe I have to go back and not lie anymore when it comes to the engineering items. But you don't want to wait till you find out, or the other person finds out that you lied, or you find out that they might know more than what you think they knew, because their role happens to be different from what your original expectations were from an interviewing standpoint. You want to be truthful regardless, right? That's extremely important. Now, I've never worked in India, so I don't know how interviews and the processes actually work back there. I'm pretty sure everyone expects honest answers. As to how many of them actually end up getting it, that's a different story. And as to how many of them find out the answer is actually wrong, or it's a lie, that is a different story as well. But it should suffice to say that do not lie, and do not embellish your skills. People are going to find out. Trust me. And point number 11, do not take help from a friend when interviewing. Don't wear one AirPod where, other one, somebody speaking into it. I mean, don't try to be deceitful, or don't try to cheat. It's illegal, obviously. But beyond that, people are going to find out, and it's going to be awkward when they do, and embarrassing. And even if they don't, how are you going to sleep peacefully knowing that you actually lied? So don't try to deceive your interviewers. Say what you've done, say what you're capable of doing, speak to your skills, your background, experience, or lack of it does not matter. I found my first job, uh, uh, you know, for about like 1,000, 2,000, I don't know, 1,500 miles away from where I was studying. Interviewed. I didn't know anybody in the company. They didn't know me. I told them what I knew. It was very, very little at the time. that didn't stop them from actually giving me a job, right? So, and if it did, that's fine too. I've applied to the next company and the next one till I found one. So, but if I had found one by lying through my teeth in the interview, I could not have done it. So I don't know what that means. If somebody can do it, I just cannot do it, and I don't think anyone should either. If you're paid for 8 hours a day, then you should work for 8 hours a day. If you're paid for 6 hours, work for 6 hours. Don't get paid for 8 hours and work like 6 hours. That's simple, right? Again, I'm stating the obvious here. If you say you're working 40 hours a week, then at least work 40 hours a week. If you're working from home, which I do, uh, and let's say you have to take a break in the afternoon, maybe you're sleepy, you want to take a nap, do it. But that doesn't count towards your time. Tell your team, hey, you know what? I'm feeling sleepy. I'm going to take a nap, or I have to go take care of something. I'll be back in a half hour. Just be honest with what you are or what you're not doing, but make sure you work that time. Now, it does not mean that if you're working 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week and 2,000 hours a year, that you're going to be the most productive that you are. But that's a different problem. We don't want to talk about it here. And if you want to know how to be more productive, let me know, or use our APIs, and that'll actually make you more productive from the get go. But back to the point here, you are promising, or you're being paid to work a certain number of hours, and you have to work those number of hours. If somebody works at a coffee shop or a bagel store, has to clock in and clock out, even if we as white collared workers, I guess in this space, not don't have to clock in and clock out from a legality standpoint, because the companies may not require that. You have to quote unquote clock in and clock out at the minimum, do those number of hours, so your employer gets their money's worth. Number 13, broaden be inclusive and broaden your social circles. If you only wanted to be friends with Indians, that is, why even immigrate out of India in the first place, right? I've seen I know people who moved here years ago, but their general group of friends that they socialize with or they talk to happens to be exclusively Indian people. And I'm like, oh, that's fine, to each our own, right? But I just wonder, to become part of society, you've moved here because you wanted to move to this country, right? Uh, Whatever the reason might be, the reasons vary between all people from immigrating to the US from all parts of the world. But there is a reason you moved here, because you wanted to be part of this society. So if you want to just hang on to everything that you did before you moved here, then I don't know why you should have moved here. Money cannot be the only motivating factor. At least I hope that is not. Number 14, when someone asks you for money, say you're in a city street, like I was in New York, again, like I said, last week, couple of weekends, and always somebody walks up to you and says, hey, sir, do you have a dollar? Do you have two? I mean, if you want to give, you can give, or you refuse politely, or just keep walking saying, no, I'm good. But don't shoo people away. I've actually seen Indian people shoo people away. Like, I know we've in India, it's it is sad, but it's considered acceptable when somebody is like pleading, maybe at the traffic light, someone is begging and they need money. People tend to shoo them away with utter disrespect, and it's considered all right, because you know what, they are begging, or in the first place, why should I be respectful? But they are human, as simple as that. So you can carry that behavior and come here. I mean, for one, it's dangerous, I'm pretty sure, for many reasons in the US to do that. And two, it is not courteous, obviously. So, do not shoo people away. Uh, Number 15, I'm just moving on bullets here because they're all tied together. Okay. Pay heed to civic sense in general, and notice how it differs from others, right? In other words, you have to constantly make adjustments. We grew up in a certain society, which is fine, but you now live in a different society, and the rules of engagement are actually different. Not all rules are written. Most of the rules actually end up being unwritten rules. So they are societal norms, things that are accepted and not accepted, and it's imperative that each of us makes an honest effort at understanding what those are and where the separation is between what's accepted and what's not, and not try to walk that fine line all the time. It's very painful to do that, to us, and to other people as well. So pay heed to civic sense and try to make constant adjustments. Try to enjoy your work, and even if you don't, try to do your best. Don't be a Newman. If you know the character, one of the characters I love in Seinfeld, where in one of the episodes, I think George asks him if he's not working for the post office anymore, and Newman goes, "No, actually, I kind of do," or something along those lines. And George is like, "What does it mean?" Newman goes, "Well, I don't do the job, but I collect the paycheck. That's what I mean." It's very funny, at least the way he said it. I didn't make it nearly as funny. but don't be a human where your primary aim is to just collect paychecks, right? Work ethic, just like civic sense on the personal side, on the professional side, work ethic is super important and is something that's taken very seriously in America, and as it should be in every part of the world. So hopefully you enjoy what you do, and if you even if you don't, you got to do your best till you find something else that you do that you're going to find that you let me rephrase that. Whether you like what you do or not, you're going to have to put your best foot forward. If you don't like what you do, you still have to do what you have to do, what is expected of you, till you find something that you actually do want to do, right? But in the interim, during the time, in the meantime, three different ways I'm saying the exact same thing. You don't have the rights to not just do your job as well as you can because you don't like it. That doesn't bode for good work ethic. And when you do something like that, it affects people like me, who actually only pick up work or do something when they enjoy it, or whether or not they enjoy it, they actually do their best. So you don't want to make other people's lives difficult because your work ethic is questionable. Show up on time, right? Be it a party or a meeting, you got to show up on time. We jokingly say that it's Indian Standard Time, where things are always 3 hours behind schedule. Like someone calls you to a party at 6 o'clock and people show up at 8. If you show up at 6, the host is actually surprised. And we've actually been told, like, oh my God, you showed up at 6. And I was like, do you guys not invite us at 6 o'clock? And they were like, yeah, but you know how Indian parties work. I'm like, no, I don't. Uh, Not anymore, at least. So this is not true just for social gatherings. Even for meetings, I've been in places where there are some Indian people who've shown up like 5 minutes or 3 minutes later than they should. Now, if you're hopping on and off from, excuse me, another meeting, maybe that's an excuse. Maybe there shouldn't be one. Maybe there's a different problem, which is every meeting should end at the 50th minute. Like when we set up meetings at Snowpal, we try to end them at the 50th minute. So when the next meeting starts at the top of the hour, you actually have the 10 minutes to prepare or go to that meeting, right? So it's changes. You can make small changes that make seismic differences. Number 19, follow the written laws of the land, which you have to, and the unwritten laws of the land as well. Now, the former is not an option, right? The law requires that you do it. So we all do it. But that doesn't mean the latter is any less important. Where there are no the unwritten laws or rules or guidelines, you've got to follow them. Observe, learn, execute, and repeat. That's important. Tipping. Now, again, tipping has gone out of control in the US. I just watched that on CNBC the other day that, it is worth a discussion in itself. But outside of the recent issues with the proliferation of tipping requirements, in general, we know that there are services that expect tips. Like if you're working as in the food service industry, you get paid below minimum wages because the tip is expected to make up for the difference. And if it doesn't, I believe the establishment hopefully pays the difference. But I went to a lunch with somebody some not too long ago, an Indian person. They went to a Thai place and we ordered some food, and I think the check was for $13.87 or something along those lines. And they rounded the total to $14, meaning the tip was like 13 cents. Oh my goodness. So 13 cents is like 1%, right? Even under 1% of $13.87. Now, you probably know that 15% is the minimum that we expected to tip. Even if I'm saying so myself, I'm a reasonably generous tipper. I find avenues to tip, and I tip as much as I can afford, or sometimes more than I can as well, because I respect the work that people do, because I know that those are jobs that I probably couldn't do myself. So I have a lot of respect for those. There's jobs I cannot do because I don't have the talent, and there's jobs I cannot do because I just don't have the I don't know, the mental ability to do those, or just don't have the interest in doing the jobs. However you look at it, I respect jobs in both those categories more than my very own sometimes. So I know I tip as much as I can. But even if you're not a generous tipper, and I know a lot of Indian people are not, because we're not used to tipping, because back in India, you don't tip. Even if you do, it's not disproportionate to the size of the check, but that's not the case here. So you're going to have to, tip 15%. And if your service is better, I highly encourage you to tip more. But if you don't want to tip, then just do a carry out or just cook at home and eat, right? Don't show up at a restaurant, have full service, and then decide not to want to tip unless you have a real reason to not tip, which is the food was bad, or I don't know, you found a strand of hair, or the service was terrible, in which case you probably might have to explain to them as to why you don't like it. Um, uh, okay, and Yep, I think the second part of point number 20 was a lot of America waits tables. So if you look at all the CEOs, I think even Jensen Huang has said he had washed clean toilets 30 years ago, and now he runs the world's largest company. So the respect, you should have respect for every job. Your job is no better than anyone else's. So please do not disrespect people for what they do, because you think for whatever weird reason that it's actually demeaning to do that work. Nothing is, right. There is nothing called dignity of labor, because every job needs to be done by somebody, either by a human or by a bot, and we all do what we've got to do. So please make sure you respect every job, and you show that respect in the way you talk to people who perform those jobs. Point number 21, don't block the aisle in the supermarket. When you go to the supermarket, to Harris Teeter or Wegmans, for instance, people are buying, they have the cart, and these carts are oversized. Everything is oversized, unfortunately, in the US, but these carts are oversized. They tend to be, they're big, but that doesn't mean you block it. Make sure you don't block the aisle when you're grabbing something from the shelf. Don't wait for people to tell you, because a lot of times people are not going to tell you. This is going to take a video and post it on Instagram, and there's going to be somebody else like me who's going to post a video as a follow-up to that video. So let's save the trouble, save all of us the trouble, because we have other important fish to fry. Or people on the in the grocery stores probably just go to a different aisle and walk around, which is what I do all the time. I don't have the interest to tell people that they're blocking my way. I just go around, but it's creating inconvenience. So do not block the aisle. Do not park in spaces that you shouldn't. I think I mentioned this earlier. Disabled spaces, unless you have a disability tag, 15-minute parking, 5 lanes, and so on and so forth. Number 23, your life, your family, and your friends are absolutely important to you, of course, but they are no more important than other people, their families, and their friends from a societal standpoint. So try not to do something that benefits you and you alone, but ends up actually annoying or hindering someone else. Again, civic sense, that is important. Be cognizant of that. Just learn from the environment. The next point is number 24. Do not bring your religious and caste based differences here to the US. It is painful enough in India. We've had this system, caste system, and whatnot for thousands of years. And hopefully one day we wake up to not having those things, but that's wishful thinking and it's utopian thinking, if you will. One, it's not legal here. Not that it's legal in India as well, but it's not legal here. But given that everything cannot be enforced, like I said earlier, try to treat everyone as equals, because they are. Either everybody else you're looking at is your equal. I go with this mindset. Everyone I'm looking at is either my equal or better than me. I think that makes life a little bit easier to live. Um, Number 25, be proud of yourself and your community and your backgrounds and yada, yada, yada. But don't falsely believe that you have superior skills to other people, whatever those skills are. I've seen that, it's not just an Indian thing, but it's certainly an Indian thing to believe that we have superior mathematical skills. And somehow it's like a cool thing to be good in math or whatnot. I don't know what that means. Trust me, you know, sure, maybe some people are good at math in India, just like some people are good at math in the US and in Europe and in China and Asia and in Africa and in Latin America. But I think I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know if more people on an average are better at math in certain societies. India has 1.4 billion people, so I want to know what the numbers are if someone claims that we are actually better at math. I think the population base is large, so there's more people who might be good at something on an absolute scale. But if you took a percentage of the number of people who are good at that same thing in another country, like if you took Sweden, which has 5 million people, and you took the number of people who are good at certain type of math, I don't know, maybe differential equations, just as a random example, or maybe you took physics or circuit theory or mechanics and optics or courses that I've did 100 years ago, unless someone can prove empirically that a higher percentage of people in this society are better than the same percentage of people in that society, there is no reason to even believe that that is the case. Now, whether it's important to even do those comparisons, I don't think so. But before you feel proud about something that your people do, make sure that more of your people do that than the people that you think you're better off than. um, Number 26, if you think America needs you more than if you think America needs you more than you need America, I highly recommend that you think again, right? Because I don't think any of us is doing any favors by virtue of our immigration. If we did not move to this country, or if we were not born to begin with, I think things would still be the same. I don't think anyone is indispensable, because there is a good chance that someone else is just as smart and they probably didn't get the opportunity, or they got but they lost in the race because you ended up being slightly better than them. So if you did not exist because you were not born, then they would actually be backfilling your role in society. And even if they were not, right, the bottom line is, I actually had people tell me, oh, you know what, America needs me. I'm like, yeah, maybe America needs Jensen Wong, maybe America needs like Zuckerberg or Sundar Pichai, but I don't know. Most of us, it's okay, right? I mean, we do believe we contribute to society, and I'm pretty sure we do. But does the country need us desperately? I don't know. So let's be good citizens, and let's be, grateful to wherever it is that we are, right? And not believe that the country needs to be grateful to us. Let us be grateful to the nation, right? That seems to make a bit more sense to me. Um, when you dine in full service restaurants, like remember I told you there's no particular order, so my apologies there. When you dine in full service eateries, do not leave trash at your table. Like if you go to Panera Bread or I don't know Potbelly, you know it's not full service. So after you eat the sandwich, the paper that comes with the sandwich, it's your job to trash it in the trash bin. And if you're grabbing a drink, make sure you put that in recycle. Even if you don't, at the minimum, just take it off of the table. Take it to your house if you want to take it to, but do not leave it on the table, because that means the people who are working there have to do one more thing, which they actually shouldn't have to do in the first place. Take your trash and leave the table in the same state that it was when you came to the table. If it was clean enough, leave it clean. And sometimes we go to Panera Bread, and we go to Panera Bread all the time. The table's always dirty, and we wipe it clean before we sit down. And we complain about the establishment, but I now that I'm now that now not just now, even when we thought about it, we were like, if people cleaned up after themselves, then we wouldn't be blaming the establishment. Now, if people didn't do it, maybe it's up to Panera Bread to do it, because just because the person, the family before us, ended up being messy and filthy in terms of how they treated the table when they left the table, I shouldn't be subject to that filth. That's a different problem. But I think you should pick up your trash from the table at those non full service places. Um, and even in full service places, when somebody is coming to pick up the dishes, we always stack them, and put it in if you have like 5 plates and 7 spoons and forks, rather than leave it all over the place where they have to go fetch it. Bring them together, put it on the edge of the table, so it's much easier for the waiter or the waitress to just take it and go. Number 28, understand that folks genuinely have a hard time understanding accents. And it's not easy to lose an accent. Ask me about it. I've been here most of my life. Accents, old habits die hard, and accents are much like that. But it's all right, as long as, you know, you do what you can, right? I mean, you make the adjustments. If you like the language, you try to make the adjustments even more so than others. I love English as a language, so I try to make the adjustments where I can, even if I don't have to. And when I don't, if I mispronounce something, it's because I clearly failed at pronouncing it correctly, or at least the way it's pronounced in the land that I'm living in right now. um, so lose your accent if you can, or till you do it, or if you cannot do it, speak slowly. Now that's easier said than done. It could be hypocritical, because I don't know if I'm speaking slowly at all. It's very hard for me to do it, but I make an effort? I do. Whether I succeed in doing that, that's a different story altogether. Um, and last but not least, in this bullet item 28, and no, Indian people from India, we do not have a British accent. I'm serious, because when Indians have a very strong accent and a very thick accent, and you mispronounce words, one of the excuses I've heard is, hey, you know what? We don't speak like how Americans do, because the British ruled us for 200 years and we speak like the British. Not true. I mean, it's true that they ruled us for hundreds of years, but what's not true is that we speak anything like the British. I mean, if you don't agree, maybe you should hit up John Oliver and ask John. He's a really nice guy, right? I don't know him personally, but I love John Oliver. He's going to be nice to you, but if he's honest, he's going to say, nope, you don't have the British accent, right? So don't falsely believe that you do. We don't speak anything like the British, like not at all, not even close. So our accents are our own, however they are. Um, Number 29, in meetings or restaurants and in public places, push your chairs back when you leave the table. Yep, so the next person doesn't have to go find the chair. When you go to Panera Bread and you have a table with 4 chairs and you only see 3, because someone took the 4th chair because they have had a larger group, but they didn't bother to bring the chair back. Or maybe you're at a restaurant or at a meeting, you get up and you just leave, do not care how the chair was, erase things on the blackboard, or move your chairs back. Just leave things the way they were before your presence was felt in that location or at the table or at the desk. Number 30, if you pick an item at a grocery store and end up realizing that you don't actually want it, you want to put it back where it belongs, or hand it to somebody who's working there and ask them what you're supposed to do. Just don't take, I don't know, a loaf of bread and then you decide you don't want it, and then you put it next to, I don't know, the cookies or ketchup, because someone else has to do the job, right? They're going to have to find it. I don't know if somebody's assigned to doing this. If I worked at a store and I was assigned to do this, I would be livid, because if the customers didn't have to create the mess in the first place, I wouldn't have to clean up that mess, right? So whatever you take, put back where it belongs. You move to the point number 31. You moved to the US because you wanted to change for some reason, whatever that reason is. So assimilating with the society, I think I alluded to this earlier, but I have a bullet point here, so I'm going to say it. Assimilation is not optional, really, right? You got to try to do it. Be a Roman while in Rome, as they say. You've got to make an effort to understand the unwritten rights and wrongs. Fake accent that sounds neither Indian nor American is not one of it. The only thing where I see Indian people make an effort sometimes is try to create this accent, which is really difficult to understand, even for me as an Indian with an accent, because it's not how we speak. We used to speak back in India. It's not how people speak in Europe. It's not how people speak in the US or in Latin America or in Africa or in Asia or China or Southeast Asia. It's an accent that somehow we believe that it's American or Western. So we take the words that we've mispronounced to begin with, add another flavor of misinterpreted pronunciation from the West or from the US. We end up creating this new accent, which is not only new, but it's very unique to each one of us, right? So it's one thing to have a standard Indian accent or a standard American accent or a British accent, because at least societies try to learn to understand them. But if I have a Krish accent and a Meena accent, that's going to be really, really difficult for people to understand. How many accents can anyone potentially understand? And trust me, folks in the US understand more accents than anybody I've ever seen in the world. Like, I wouldn't understand certain Indian accents, but I have my fellow co-workers who are American who have no trouble understanding all accents and all pronunciations and all mispronounced words and all grammatical mistakes, and they somehow seem to make sense out of that, which is a remarkable skill which I've never cultivated. um, okay, what is the next item? 32. Start with the notion that no one is a racist, because most people are not. Regardless of what you read and see and want to believe and what the media says, most people are good people, right? Even if sometimes there's mob mentality in certain situations, people might say the wrong things, whether they mean it or not, I don't know. On a one-on-one basis, 99.9% of the world is generally good. At least that's what I believe. That's been my experience, right? People are not racist. Even when they ask you questions that could sort of sound like that, they don't intend to be racist. They are just sometimes curious, right? I can tell you a story where somebody stopped us on the trail not too long ago in Virginia. And she asked me, we don't know each other, but we've run into each other on the trail. And she was like, hey guys, I know we've kind of seen each other on the trail. If you don't mind, can I ask you something? And I could guess, not exactly, but to some extent, what she might ask. She was, hey, I was just curious to know why there are so many Indians in this neighborhood. I mean, the first thought that came to me was laughter, right? Both my wife and I started laughing because it was very funny, because it's true. There are a lot of Indians where we live in Virginia, Northern Virginia. But before I answered the question, I tried, I couldn't be offended even if I wanted to, because I knew I've run into that lady on the trail a lot of times. She seemed like a very nice person, an older lady. And I said, hey, before I answer your question, I want to ask you one thing. She asked about Loudoun County and the part of Northern Virginia where we live. I asked her, hey, when was the last time you were in Fairfax County or in the neighboring town, or you were in New York, or I don't know, in Dallas, Texas, or whatnot? Because we are there as well, right? She started laughing too, and I kind of had a chat with her, and then we just had a conversation. So what began as something that somebody could have misconstrued as a potentially racist question, which it was not from the get go. I think it also depends, right? I think it's both ways. If somebody is mean to you, I'm not saying people cannot be. There will be. There's a lot of mean people in the world. Before you get offended, just give them a chance, just one time. Number 33. Do not return products just because you can. people sometimes go gaga over this return policy. I don't shop at Costco. I don't know what their policy is, but I know people, I've read that people go use something for like 3 months and give it back. That's preposterous to me. How do you use something for 3 months and then you decide you don't want it, right? Now, as to why the store permits people to do from allows people to do it, I don't know. Maybe their volume, they sell a lot of it. Maybe this is something that not everybody uses or abuses, so they're all right. But that doesn't mean we should. So don't buy something just with the intent of returning it. The idea behind that policy is you bought something, you don't actually genuinely like it, and then you end up returning it, or it's faulty, then you return it. Not for you to use it for 3 days and return it. I don't buy a pair of AirPods, use it for 10 days, and then give it back to Apple because your trip to Las Vegas is now done. That's not what the policy was probably meant for. Do not feel superior to anyone, because the truth is you're not. There's a good chance you're not. Let me say, put it that way. There's a very it's highly likely that someone else is a lot better than you at whatever it is that you do. Just because you don't know them, it doesn't mean that they exist, right? So whatever it is that you're proud of, you can be and you should be proud, but don't. Sometimes being proud can become obnoxious to other people, right? So do not believe that you're superior by way of religion, caste, race, sect, I don't know, money, intellect, whatnot, because you probably, what you believe might be true in that small circle that you could draw around where you're standing. But as the circle broadens, you're going to realize quickly that there are people who are a whole lot better than you can possibly ever imagine being. So if people like Jensen Huang can be very humble, he comes across as one of those incredibly humble people, then there is no reason for any of us to ever believe that we can choose to not be humble. No. Number 35, education is important. I think I was in college for too long, and then I had a podcast where I shared why I don't think it's the way of the future, but that's just my opinion. So if you have a cool degree from a cool place, by a cool degree, I mean, I don't know, a fancy degree that you need for today's survival, maybe AI related and whatnot, it's important to learn, but it's for your own purposes, right? You're improving your knowledge by learning, improving your lifestyle by learning and getting a better job, improving the lifestyles of your families and friends and whatnot. You're not necessarily helping society by virtue of that, unless you're a philanthropic or you're into philanthropy and and whatnot, which a lot of people are not. So if you have a cool degree from a cool place, if you went to an Ivy League school, good for you. But honestly, no one else really cares. I think these fancy MBAs, I personally never believed in them, and I read recently that honestly it's not useful anymore. But that's not the purpose of this item. Even if you think it's useful, that's fine, but don't become braggadocious. In other words, you did what you did because you had to do it or you wanted to do it. You did your master's not because you're an academic genius. That's because you want an F1 visa to come to the US. Uh, Not necessarily because you love computer science more than everybody else who actually happens to be in your class or happens to be living around you or working with you, who does not have a bachelor's or a master's or even a high school diploma. If you're working the same job at the same place, clearly you're equal from a professional standpoint as well, outside of everything I've mentioned. So try not to make your pride something that's obnoxious to other people. I mean, wearing tees and shirts that speak about your college, again, I don't know what the I grabbed this from Hollister, so this is just something I found that fit me and I grabbed it. um, so I didn't go to, I have nothing to do with Georgia. So what I'm trying to say is, I see these tees and sweatshirts where they have the name of your university. Where, I think it's all right to wear it if you want to wear it. Would I do it? Have I done it? Never, right? Even when I work for larger organizations, I never put their brand. I put Snowpal because that's the company that I run, and I'm proud of the company, and we want to be able to sell what we do, right? There's an intent there. But if I'm working for an organization, I can wear it if I want to. If I feel like it gives me, it makes me feel good. Sure, you can do it, but just don't expect people to be wowed by what you're doing, because I've seen that people wear this fancy things that says Harvard, and we are supposed to immediately be, I don't know, more respectful to them because of what it says on the t-shirt. I don't think so, right? um, Number 36, don't be nice to people just because you need something from them or they are wealthy and accomplished or qualified. And again, this is one of those points that's generic to everybody, not just to the Indian people. But again, I put them, if it made it into this list, it's because I've seen this behavior or action from an Indian person either from myself or from somebody else. And which is why, even though it's not specific to us as people, it is still a valid point, because I've seen that as an action performed by an Indian person. So everyone deserves to be nice to, not just because you need something from them, or they're wealthy or qualified or accomplished or whatever. And again, like I said, you're not better than anyone. Not better than the person who makes your sandwich at Potbelly. Not better than the person who probably makes your bagel at Einstein, or toast your bagel at Einstein. Sorry, or the one who shows you to your parking spot in a garage. Or you're not better than the waitress who brought your meal to the table. Everyone is doing what they can, what they should, what they have to, and it's likely that a lot of them, most of them, actually are a whole lot smarter than you. They just didn't get the same opportunities that you did and now take for granted. Because I was in a car in India uh, with the guy who was driving the Uber, or one of those Uber like companies that they have in India. He was doing that for many years, and he was about my age, maybe a little bit younger. Uh, and he was very sleepy because he hadn't slept in like a day or two. And as I had this conversation with him, I recognized that I was no smarter than him by any stretch of the imagination. I just happened to live a slightly better life in a better part of the world, from a monetary standpoint, I should say, because I happened to have those opportunities when I grew up in my family, and he did not. So that didn't make him any lesser than me. It certainly didn't make me any better than him. It's just the two people who were presented different opportunities in life and grabbed what they were given. So just remember that you have to be nice. You should be nice to everybody, because you're not better than anyone. Your religion is your business, your caste is your business. I think I said this earlier. It's a duplicate point, so we can move on. No one else cares. It's who you are, what you bring to the table as a friend or a family, or a coworker or a boss, that really matters. Not what your faith or beliefs are. What you have is yours. It's important that you have those, but don't shove that down anyone else's throat. Number 38, avoid needling people when it comes to politics or religion. We live in a rather divisive society, unfortunately, till things get better, and I really hope they do. There are a lot of topics that become divisive, even topics that you don't think they are. So be aware of that, be cognizant. It's simply not worth it, right? Don't fight with people on the internet if you don't have to. Again, this is not something specific to Indian people, but I've seen those comments on Instagram where some guy goes to India and makes a video about food on the street, and people are offended and they go berserk. I mean, please, I think you should try not to be. Uh, yeah, that was my next point. 39 is, someone makes fun of those street food videos on Instagram, don't be offended. I mean, it is. I have a very sensitive stomach, and I always had that even when I was in India. So I never had street food, but I always wanted to, because it looks incredibly tasty, and I'm pretty sure it is. I just probably wouldn't be able to stomach that. Not because I've lived most of my life here now in the US, but even when I was actually in India, I just couldn't eat at those dabas in Haryana and Rajasthan when I used to go to college. It looked great. The parathas, I would love to eat those parathas. I love parathas, but I just didn't think I would be able to digest them. So when people make those videos, they are true. I mean, I've seen these videos, and it's scary. I mean, it's scary to everyone. It's scary to us as Indians who lived in India, or even to Indians who actually now live in India, right? So it's wrong to think that everyone can digest that. But don't be offended. If somebody's showing you what is happening, if you can make it better, maybe improve, maybe connect with that person who's serving that food through Instagram, or when you're back in India, tell them why they should actually be preparing it in a cleaner environment, and see if we can improve the situation, right? Just by being offended because someone said that is not adding any value, and fighting with somebody on the internet certainly adds no value to anyone. um, I think I've come to the last bullet here. This is something I've seen recently on my feeds, which is, I believe there's like a North Indian dress, like a women's dress. It's called lehenga, which it's called this dupatta as well. And I believe one of the companies in Scandinavia or some part of Europe, some other part of Europe, created a new dress that actually said it was a scarf, but it was pretty much influenced by that Indian outfit. So a lot of Indian people have taken offense to it, and they're like, "Oh, you know what? First you took the you by you," they're referring to the West, took the basmati rice or yoga and other things, and now it's the dress. I'm like, you know what? If somebody's actually copying you, I think flattery is not the best policy. No, wait, am I picking the wrong idiom? I love idioms, but I end up picking the wrong one. Imitation is the best form of flattery, as we know. So if someone's copying what you do, it's because they actually like what you do and they're inspired. So you know what, let them do it, unless it's copying what they shouldn't be copying. Like, I don't know, I believe Costco is being sued by Lulu because Lulu believes that they copied that style. That's a different form of copying. I'm just talking about something like this, where it's an idea, a concept from years ago. I don't know if you can pin it down to when lehenga came into existence. So don't be offended. I mean, I don't know why you live it. And even if you want to argue about that, actually, I have a question to ask people. We've been wearing pants and suits. I don't have a suit as a developer, but people have, right? I have one, I think, a blazer. We've been wearing pants and shirts and tees all our lives. Back in India as well. The last time I checked, I don't think any of them originated in India, right? It's probably coming from England, from the Brits, at least the suit, or somewhere from that part of the world. So I didn't see. I mean, I haven't seen any videos that have popped up, at least on my feed, where the Brits are complaining or whining about appropriation of suits and pants and shirts, because somebody in India is wearing them, right? If they're not offended because we are wearing pants and suits, why are we getting offended if they're actually wearing or selling something that's based off of a lehenga? I don't know. Maybe there's a reason. I just don't understand the reason. So that brings me to the end. It's funny. I thought it'll take an hour. Usually, if I think it'll take if something should take an hour, when it comes to podcasting, it ends up taking a lot more. But I don't know. I don't know whether I said 1 hour or 30 minutes at the top of this podcast. Hopefully I said 1 hour, which means I would be on track. If I said half hour, then not so much. So those are 40 line items, and if you follow these items, I hope your life will become, my hope is it becomes a little bit better. I hope people look at you a little bit better. I hope you assimilate better into the society that you're living in right now in the US. If you believe that making these changes and accommodations and adjustments actually will uh, have a reverse effect where things will actually become make your life more difficult, let me know. Because yeah, like I said, I'm happy for someone to disagree. Just be civil is all that I can ask for, and if you don't, it's on you and not on me, so it's all right. Let me know, and let me know if I've missed something here that you would like to add as well. Or just let me know, what do you think? Do you think this makes sense? Do you think I'm going overboard? What are your thoughts and reactions on something like this? With that, I'm going to call it done with this podcast. Talk to you later. Bye bye.